to be like a buzzword.
Yeah.
How do you feel about like the ergonomics piece? Like, would you ever drop that word? Are you more like, I know we just talked about posture, but like, does that kind of marry with stuff you're doing, or is that kind of like a different?
It's a piece of it. So like what Jared just said, you know, I don't necessarily think, because if you look at people, I don't necessarily think that static posture is the cause for pain. Because if you look at people, there are plenty of people who don't have pain who have terrible posture. So why? Like, what's the difference between them, and if they're active versus non-active? But for me, it's more how do they move through. So if I have terrible posture, but now I go to move and I can engage the right muscles, I'm strong, both sides of my joint, all that kind of stuff, then that's different than someone who has terrible posture and is, you know, weak in their upper back, tight in the front. Now you're gonna have pain. So for me, it's not necessarily like your static posture, but it's how you move through your posture. And then ergonomics is, to me, is just a piece of, it's a piece of how you operate when you're, you know, when you're moving at your workplace or something like that. So, you know, like, so these bullet points.
Saying that you know, because the buzzword ergonomics is so like that, it's like, you know, protein, they love that word.
Yeah.
You know,
they'll perk up, and then you can tell them like the real deal.
Right.
You know?
Like,
You can do anything. Yeah, and you can do anything to somebody's workstation to make it better. But what are you doing to the human behind
Like a
the
Band-Aid.
workstation?
Yeah.
I just tell people, like, you want to learn about perfect ergonomics? They don't exist. No.
Yeah.
You know, so it's more of, and these are the bullet points I'm going to send you. It's more of like, hey, if you're working on something and you know you're going to be working on something for a couple of hours, this is probably the best position for you. You know, feet flat, hips below the knees.
Yeah,
and
that would
arms,
definitely be
arms
intriguing
here,
for them.
like feet back. That's the best position if you're gonna be working on something for a long time. I would then challenge you to get up and move every so often. You know, don't stay there. But when you're in that posture, you know, this is what you should look like. But what we really want is, we really want you to move. We want you to get up. We want you to roll your shoulders. We want you to arch your back, flex your back. You know, if you're someone who sits like this all day, and my shoulders are rounded, my back is arched, my head is forward, we want to reverse that posture every so often. So you need to get up. You need to bring your head back. You need to reach back, and you need to reverse that posture.
Yeah,
it's more
kind
about
of counteracting.
Right.
Yeah. The current site that we're at, obviously, they don't want their workers to stop working.
Right.
You know, that's a big thing of like, the managers are like, I don't want you to go, because if you go and do the training, then you're not gonna, you know, mop the floor that needs to be done. So, what can you do while mopping the floor?
And it's you know, it's the repetitive movement piece. You know, if you're sitting here like this and mousing, and doing, you know, just mousing for an hour, change over your left hand, see what happens. You know, change
some
what
wrist
you're
stretch,
doing. Right. Yeah, reverse that posture. If you're mopping and you're always mopping left to right, flip it over, mop right to left.
I love the car. I do it with the car all the time. Everything's moving repetitively, like you said, the same all the time. So I have to like be aware and switch it up. I'll put my left hand here, or just down, use my right hand a little bit. I'm not saying I'm going to switch my feet,
start driving with your left foot.
But
yeah, no, you just change the patterns that you keep doing, because your body and your brain get used to that. That's why this whole, you know, 10 years ago, whatever, when P90X came out, the whole muscle confusion, you know, thing was so popular. But there's truth to that. Like, if you keep going through the same patterns, you'll get really strong and really confident in those same patterns. Now, what happens if, you know, the game of life asks you to do something outside of one of those patterns? Now you're more susceptible to being injured, because you never deviate from those patterns. So trying to, like you just mentioned with the car, trying to deviate from the patterns that you do regularly will keep you more you know, more resilient to injury when your body does ask you to do something that you're not used to. So, right, and so if I work here, right, then I get up, I go to my car, I drive here, and I get home, I sit at my kitchen table, I eat here, then I get up, and I go sit. Then I sit on the couch, I watch TV, and I drink here. Like, never did I extend. My hips never went back behind me. My head never went back. My shoulders never got up, right? So, you know, the people who have that desk job, it's just every 55 minutes, reverse that posture. You know, roll your shoulders, get your head to go back, stand up, arch your back, you know, stand up, extend your legs behind you.
I think further proof to what you're saying with movement is the key. That's why the standing up desks never really took off. When they came out, they were hot, right? Everybody's like, oh, sitting's the culprit. It's not sitting.
it's static
stagnant.
Right.
Yeah, so it's movement is key. So
you get people who like, oh, I stand over my desk for 8 hours and this hurts.
yeah,
Well, no
this hurts
kidding.
more. Yeah.
That's
Sit
how
down.
they lean to their hip too. Like a lot of people stand like
You know,
that.
after 2 hours, sit down. What do you mean sit down? Sit down is the worst. No, sitting down is not the worst.
Yeah.
It's just staying in the same position. Yeah, if you're leaning right the whole time,
Yeah.
and if your desk isn't high enough and you're working down here now instead of up here. I mean, you're tall. Like imagine reaching down all day for stuff. Imagine the stress it's going to put on your neck, your back. It's moving. You just have to keep moving. So if you have a stand, this is what I tell people, if you have a stand-up desk, that's great. Start your day off standing. If you just drove a long time to work, start your day off standing. Stand for about an hour or two, and then sit down. Sit down for an hour or two, then stand up. And then just stand before you're going to get in your car to drive 40 minutes home if you have a long commute. And it's really just changing your positions. And when you're standing, you have more of a tendency to bounce back and forth and back, and I get that, but you also have a tendency to lock your knees out, hang out on your hips, and just drop here and just work here, and there's no difference. That's like the fad of sitting on a ball, an exercise ball at work. There is no difference between me sitting in a chair like this and me sitting on a
they said the ball's bad.
exercise
More
ball like this.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Actually, more uncomfortable. I'm more like this.
Yeah.
The only thing an exercise ball does is it'll let you bounce a little bit maybe, if you do it. If you bounce or if you roll side to side or forward and back, it gives you a little bit more movement. But if I'm sitting, like when they took the exercise ball and they put it on the stand with the four, what's the difference? And they put it back to it. What is the difference between that and sitting on a chair? There's no difference. I can sit here like this all day long on a ball.
Yeah.
Just like I do on a chair, So it's really about movement.
Especially when they can't make that correlation between activating the right muscle groups, like you talked about earlier. With you have these power lifters or like these
guys and women that's what they do. They're like, how much can I bench or how much can I squat? And you get them on the table and you ask them to, do extension and flexion with their hips, and they're like moving their shoulders or moving their neck. They can't make that correlation. So I think it's just, it's so important. Would you agree that most of it stems from your hips?
I would agree that most of it stems from the pelvis and the low back. So I think everything generates from your core. So for me, the core is like the low nipple line to like the top of your knee for me. It includes your glutes, it includes your hip rotators, it includes your pelvis, it includes your low back stabilizers, it includes your your abdominals, your deep abdominals. It all comes from there. So like if you don't have control of your pelvis to be able to rock it anteriorly, to rock it posteriorly, that's going to cause more stress in your lumbar spine. That's going to cause you to ask more of your hips, and that just generates from there. So anytime you create force, if I'm walking or if I'm going to lift or anything like that, you want to be able to transfer that force from the top half of your body to the lower or vice versa. And if you don't have that control, that stability or that control through the midsection or your midline, then you're not going to be able to generate that.
Yeah, and imagine how much
stronger
stronger
you could be if you could.
Right.